Meet the Kronosaurus. It could come from your worst nightmare, but in fact, it's from Queensland.
An enormous reptile that was found in Queensland. Wonderful beast, fearsome set of teeth and a big predator, obviously. Probably the top predator in the sea at the time, about 110 million years ago.
The Monsters of the Deep exhibit opens at the Newcastle Regional Museum tomorrow. It features creatures even a country full of Crocodile Dundees couldn't handle. And while they look like Hollywood creations, they were all once frighteningly real.
All these models are made by paleontologists as accurately as they can possibly do it.
The only problem is making the models big enough. The Tylosaurus, ancestor of the humble goanna, grew to 10 metres. The bizarre Elasmosaurus, even bigger at 14 metres. It all adds up to an ocean full of trouble. It's almost enough to make old Whitey here look just a little bit tame. Bruce Mackenzie, tempting fate for NBN News.
And first is stage 3. So it sounds...
"21-year-old part-time driver Anthony Mervin's shift was nearly over when he picked up 3 people from Bank Corner in Hunter Street just after 4 a.m. The 2 men and a woman told him they lived at an isolated farmhouse west of the Toronto Golf Club. Near the end of the ride, the taxi became stuck in a ditch.
Sort of thought it was a joke for the first minute, but it sort of got a bit serious after that. It was grabbing me around the throat, and the other 2 jumped out, and the girl did a runner, and the bloke just come around the other side and decided to join in.
The driver set off a distress signal at the taxi co-op as he was robbed of his night's takings and personal belongings. The cab's 2-way radio and distributor were torn out and flung into the bush. Anthony was repeatedly bashed and then dragged through the scrub.
I didn't know where I was going. To a post over there and tried to tie me up with the jumper leads from the back of the car.
The driver managed to free himself from the pole and make his way back toward the main road. He was again confronted by the female passenger, but by this time, police responding to the emergency were on the scene. The woman was taken into custody for questioning. Police are now seeking an 18-year-old man of solid build with short ginger hair and blue eyes. He has a Grim Reaper tattoo on his right forearm. His companion is described as 168 centimetres with shoulder-length blonde hair. Both are thought to be travelling in a brown 1981 Sigma sedan, registered LCR 947, possibly heading for Burke. Oktoberfest has moved forward on the calendar to avoid the perennially unsettled October weather, but it was dust, not downpour, that greeted the 17th annual opening ceremony. Germania Club officials, cultural troops and a flower power army got the show on the march. Local dignitaries toasted the celebration of traditional German culture, encouraged from an early age and enjoyed by young and old. There was time for some Eine Kleine dancing and some good old foot stomping and thigh slapping, along with an occasional clip in the ear.
It's 7:30 a.m. and athletes of varying levels of fitness are about to embark on a hard day at the office. Ahead a 1.5 kilometre swim in a chilly 18-degree Lake Macquarie, around a 40k bike ride and a 10-kilometre jog to finish. The elite triathletes headed off first of all, followed by the pack a few minutes back. It wasn't long before the first casualty, Brett White, his day shattered with cramp in the icy waters. Little separated the first two swimmers out of the water, Rob Berardi and last year's winner, 17-year-old Ben Bright, with David Williams right on their hammer. And after a brilliant swim, Colette Gunn was up there with the leading bunch. Ahead now, a bike leg shortened by about 4 kilometres owing to roadwork, but still difficult because of strong headwinds on a fair proportion of the course. Bright opened up a commanding 40-second lead at the halfway mark, with Clinton Barter who made up plenty of ground. And it was a hungry pack ready to pounce only seconds in arrears. At the final changeover, Barter had caught Bright and was first out on the run leg, with Bright beginning to feel the pressure. The ladies' event was heading for a showdown between Louise Bonham and Maureen Cummings, with Bonham grabbing a 30-second lead at the start of the run leg. By the time they rounded for the last 5Ks, Barter had opened up a 31-second gap on Bright, and he was able to power away with the Lake Macquarie Triathlon to record a fine win in the time of 1:42.20 seconds, with Mark Dragon putting in a sensational run to finish second, with Bright third. Louise Bonham continued to build on her super reputation by dominating the women's, with Maureen Cummings hanging on for second.
Rebecca McLean was playing at a neighbour's house when she was attacked by their bull terrier Cross late yesterday.
I just heard the scream. I looked up, my daughter's running across the road with blood all over her face and down her dress.
Rebecca was rushed to the John Hunter Hospital where she received 6 stitches to her face. Her father believes she was lucky her injuries were not much worse.
It just missed coming down and taking the whole side of her face away. If the tooth had sunk on the top of her head, it would have just lifted the whole face off.
The dog was destroyed last night at the request of the owners. The RSPCA says all dogs have the potential to bite. The bull terrier is no more dangerous than any other.
Everyone should be aware of it and keep a close eye when there's children involved.
This is the third such attack in recent weeks. A bull terrier killed a Sydney baby 2 weeks ago and a young Hobart boy was mauled on Friday. Tonight, Rebecca McLean is recovering at home. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
And that's exactly what 21 of the best surf boat crews in Australia did, and for the next 3 days will push their bodies and boats to the limit in the 148-kilometre race from Wallangat to Windawappa. It's all in the name of charity, raising money for the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and quite a few crews from Newcastle, the Central Coast and the North Coast are amongst the elite field. Also, 12 ski paddlers are making the journey, their task equally tough as they have to do it all themselves. For the boaties, some respite, as at regular intervals the crews change over, and it's essential that this practice happens as smoothly as possible so as not to slow the boat down. Today's 50-kilometre leg from Wallangat and back was a battle of the best. Queenscliff are the defending champions and were right in the hunt, but they were shaded by the strong Bulli team, with North staying first home in a time of 4 hours, 5 minutes and 50 seconds, but withdrew after the race, leaving Bulli as the overnight leaders. Tomorrow, it's off to Bulladilla. A much slower pace for some at Broadmeadow, as patrons of racing took advantage of 2-year-old barrier trials to catch all the action of the Moonee Valley meeting on Sky Channel. Now youngsters can be precocious, and 2-year-old Gigi's just love giving their handlers a headache. All money raised today went to the Newcastle launch of the Olympic Games Athletes Fund for Barcelona.
Greta Station has seen better days. It was closed more than 4 years ago and most rail services to the area have been replaced by buses. While the historic building retains its original iron post and fireplaces, it has fallen victim to vandals who have all but destroyed the building. But for editor Michael Muter, the station provides a golden opportunity. Pacific Railway magazine has a policy of encouraging the preservation of the nation's railway heritage, and now it's putting its money where its mouth is.
A lot of it's superficial. There's been some vandalism, probably around $35,000 to $40,000 to restore it to pristine condition.
The SRA has leased the site at a nominal fee, and in return the building will be fully restored by the company and used as a regional office and conference centre. And locals are happy that their historic station won't be falling into further disrepair.
Well, I've been very pleased that the building is going to be retained and especially pleased that it's going to be restored.
But Greta is only one of a number of disused stations in the Hunter to be given a new life. Earlier this year, the historic Scone railway station reopened as a colourful indoor-outdoor cafe and art gallery. And at Toronto, the local historical society is waiting for the go-ahead to establish a Lake Macquarie museum in the disused station and to create Australia's first greenway along the now overgrown track. State Rail has pledged $15,000 to restore the station, and once leasing arrangements are formalised, the group hopes to begin work on the museum. Alison Peters, NBN News.
The football may be over for another year, but for the sports administrators, the game never stops. Today, Knights boss Mike Armstrong took another important step towards season 1992, the signing of key forward Tony Butterfield.
He's what they term a special sort of person because he's got so much drive and enthusiasm, and he fires all the other guys up.
Butterfield is a devastating defender and power runner, but last season wasn't his best. He was dogged with knee injuries and only played 6 games in first grade. Butts was approached by several other clubs, but with the support of manager Jack Newton, decided to stick with the Knights.
You've got to put your digs down somewhere, and Newcastle is as good a place as any, and I've been here for, this will be my 5th year next year, and Newcastle will do me. I'm very happy in the city.
Butt's signature follows the signings of respected utility player Robbie McCormack and hooker Max Chapman, leaving the Knights in good stead for the future. 34 players have signed for next season, 17 have agreed to terms, only 5 are undecided. The situation with former Queenslander Mike McLean is still unclear. Knights management would not comment on his future. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Sporting a deep brown tan could become less fashionable this summer. It may be replaced by the fluoro lycra look. According to the Cancer Council, people are becoming more aware of the risk of skin cancer from the sun's rays, often inflicted from an early age.
We know that as little as 6 sunburns are statistically important in deciding the future risk of melanoma in people if they have those sunburns when they're children.
Wendy and David Franklin of Maitland have come up with the C-shirt, an adaptation of the lycra rash vest becoming more popular with surfers. The C-shirt is cut to fit sizes 2 to 10. It's been laboratory tested and its tight weave material has been found to offer a good sunblock. According to the Franklins, the lycra vest is as comfortable wet as it is dry.
We've built in special features into our C-shirt, such as a high snug-fitting neckband, and also it's got a scoop on the back so that when the children are bending over building their sandcastles and things, that they won't get sunburnt on their lower back.
But will the children wear it?
I think one of the advantages of the shirts are that they don't make it look like a dag. They're very popular, and I think that they're going to grow in popularity. But that's right, I think the peer pressure is actually starting to be more positive.
Just metres away from a crowd of keen anglers, hundreds of fish huddle together under a jetty.
About last week, they've been hanging around under the shed and as if they're hiding from the sun or something. They seem to be parasites or something being eating them.
About 1,500 fish have been washed up along the shores of the lake. Despite extensive tests, the experts are baffled.
We have now ruled out pesticides and organic chlorines, virtually all pollution other than some sort of natural phenomena that's going on in the lake.
Scientists at the nearby Lake Munmora power station conducted their own investigation, again without success.
We have sent samples to the University of New South Wales and also to the fisheries, and there seems to be a clearing of any toxic effects or so forth, but there seems to be some natural phenomena at work.
It's thought the fish may be the victims of some sort of parasite or naturally occurring toxic algae. Fisheries inspectors admit there's little that can be done to save the hundreds already affected. For anyone with a net or hand spear, this really would be like shooting fish in a barrel, but it might be wise to resist the temptation of a free dinner.
If the fish looks sick or is dead or has these red sores on them, don't eat them. Otherwise, if the fish is healthy and alive when you catch it, the chances are that you can eat that fish quite safely.
Hayes and Cook in the green had been incinerating for more week and in the semi-final beat the experienced pair of Rob Perella and Peter Rubin 23-21. Their opponents were Shane Sandilands from Sydney and Colin Pritchard of the Maroochydore Club in Queensland, and they had been equally impressive, winning their semi-final over Neville Day and Ray Beasley 18-17. The final was close all the way, with Hayes and Cook taking a one-shot lead on the 17th end. Sandilands and Pritchard levelled at 12 all on the 18th end. Hayes was brilliant in the driving department with pinpoint accuracy, and his team was able to skip away with a vital 2 shots on the 19th end. A further 2 on the next and a 1 on the 21st saw Hayes and Cook take the title and the prestige of winning the first ever classic pairs at the Windale Gateshead Club.
Civic Park will be the focus of much of the activity during the festival, and scores of willing workers were kept busy with preparations today. The youngsters are already in the party mood. The rest of us will have to wait until the weekend. A feature of the carnival will be the Birdman event on Sunday. Commercial pilot and reigning champion Matthew Zdenkowski has gone high-tech in a bid to retain his crown. Just like another great Australian sporting machine, Matthew's invention is surrounded by a modesty veil and shrouded in secrecy.
I wouldn't go so far as wind curl, but I really can't say it's classified. I could tell you, mate, but I'd have to kid you.
As we all know, what goes up invariably comes down, but at least when these high flyers crash, they don't necessarily burn. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
It's a package show with a rock and roll anthem to start proceedings. Plenty of dancing girls strutting their stuff, and the clowns doing what they do best, entertain. But it was the buck jumping that people had come to see, and they weren't disappointed. Yogi Bear was too good for young Michael Young, who bit the dust with a thud, as did Kevin Ralston aboard Ups and Downs. Well, he was aboard at some stage, but Robbie George tamed a horse called Bronc to win the bareback. The ladies weren't left out, Denise Thomas taking only 15.66 seconds to dash around the barrels to pick up the cash. Newcastle Knights 5/8 Tony Kemp came out of chute 6, hell-bent on riding the ornery mule Leroy, but alas, poor Kempy hit the pit. To the saddle bronc riding, and Alan Southern rode Bedangra to perfection. But the glamour event and one fraught with danger is the bull riding, and Robbie King soon found out to his horror what a hookup can do, as his charge Adam twisted and spun, with Robbie not able to release. A sick and sorry cowboy limped off with a few ribs in need of attention. And to show how it is done with a 74-point ride, Chris Mead in the Black Brabham. Mike Gribbett for Country Report.
The four-storey former wool store on Derby Street has survived fire and earthquake, and it shows. But now the premises have been purchased by a local builder, and there's every sign that the wool stores are about to be refurbished. The site is zoned mixed residential commercial and may be on the verge of refurbishment along fashionable lines more familiar to United States inner city redevelopment. The sale was part of an auction by Creer and Berkeley, which saw another 4 lots on the same block go under the hammer for a total figure of almost $2 million. Separate purchases bought a number of vacant blocks, also sold 12 retirement units built on Brook Street. The units were built by a Coffs Harbour developer but failed to attract buyers. They'll now be completed under normal residential guidelines and sold as units.
Campaigning in the crucial electorate of the entrance, Energy Minister Robert Webster shared lunch with a crowd of about 50 invited guests. Unfortunately for his privatisation plans, the market had no appetite when it came to tendering for Elcom's Central Coast mines.
They weren't good enough, and there's no way that we'll be fire sailing anything. But equally so, the board of Elcom has made a decision to go back to tender, and I support that decision.
The tender period has been extended by 8 weeks. Unions are claiming a decisive victory.
It's a monumental backdown by the state government. It's because of our intrusions into this matter. We've caught the bastards red-handed and they don't like it.
The United Mineworkers Federation will once again contest the tender process and is supremely confident of success.
We already have approaches from 2 significant current operators in the New South Wales coal industry to enter into equity arrangements where my organisation would not be required to put up any money but simply to provide other operational expertise.
Sometimes there's not a lot to smile about in the everyday world. Mouths to feed, bills to pay, rushing about, getting an ulcer. Pretty miserable stuff, really. But on November the 1st, the Hunter Life Education Centre is asking everyone to put aside their woes and worries and smile for life. But what is there to smile about?
I think the underlying thing is that if they can smile for no other reason, they can smile knowing that by purchasing a badge, they're helping Hunter Life Education.
Since opening 3 years ago, the Hunter Life Education Centre at Edgeworth has taught almost 150,000 children to respect their bodies and steer clear of drugs. But to get across that message, the centre has to cover operating costs of $600,000 each year. So on November the 1st, people will be expected to raise not only a smile, but also funds for the centre. Badges and stickers sporting a catchy smile will be for sale on the day. While Kel Beckett has no idea how much money will be raised, he reckons he'll have no trouble flashing the pearly whites.
Every person I see with a smile badge on will just make my smile a little bit broader, I think.